Yo, what's up guys? My name is JT and we're going to review the HO scale Broadway Limited Paragon 4 4884 Big Boy right here on Model Railroad in the Southwest. Let's take it over to the workbench and take a closer look. So here's the box that the engine comes in. This thing is massive. It measures in at 22.5 inches. That's almost 2 feet long. With the engine and the box together, it weighs in at 4 pounds 10 ounces. So this engine, the MSRP price on it is $869.99, and I paid $640 for it at a train show in Albuquerque. I bought it from Spring Creek Model Trains. So in order to open the box, what you do is you slide the sleeve off of it. Just like this. And there it is. There's the engine right there. So there's a little pocket underneath the box right here. If you slide this out, you find a little sleeve, and inside you'll find some DCC functions, a warranty, and also the operator's manual. So let's get this engine out of the box. So to get the engine out, you just pull the clamshell packaging out of the cardboard like so. So when you take the outer sleeve off, you'll have these little plastic pieces that fall down just like that. So on the top, what you'll find is an extra coupler. I'll tell you what that's for later. A magnetic wand and some extra traction tires. A smokestack hood. And a funnel for the smoke fluid. So in order to remove the engine, what you'll do is you'll lift up this flap on this side. And there it is. There's the engine. So I'm going to go ahead and take this out and we'll see it on the Lazy Susan. So here it is in all its glory. I actually have it sitting on top of its own box, and that is because it is incredibly long and it did not fit on the Lazy Susan. So this engine actually measures in at 18.5 inches from the pilot to the rear coupler. Despite being so long, this engine can actually run on 18-inch radius curves, which is really nice for those that have smaller layouts and that cannot have curves bigger than 18 inches. So that's really nice that Broadway Limited was able to do that with this model, especially with all the details it has on it. So my first impressions of this model was that it is incredibly detailed and very well done. I like to point out a few things here on the front of the engine. Over here you'll find a brass bell that actually can rotate just a bit there. It has lighted number boards, lighted marker lights, a lighted headlight. All of the lights on this model are LED, so you will not have to worry about changing incandescent bulbs on this model. Over here you'll see some cooler details here, and also this plaque that says Union Pacific and the road number that's 4023. On the front you'll notice that the pilot can actually move, and behind that you'll find a dummy coupler. Earlier in the video I showed you some couplers that were inside the box. If you want, you can actually change this coupler out to a real coupler if you want to double head an engine, or double head engines with the train. Here on the side of the model, what you'll notice that there's a lot of underbody detail right here, very intricate piping. Also, the cylinders are very well casted. There's some rivet detail in them. You'll notice that the rods are blackened, which looks really good on this model. So I wanted to point out this builder's plate because you can read every word on this plate without magnification. I think that's just really cool. The intricate details and piping runs all along the bottom of the engine here. There's a ton of piping down here along the firebox. There is a simulated leather armrest here underneath the window. There's some detail up here as well. One of my favorite features about this model are the drivers. I think they just look really neat. I'd like to point out that this driver and this driver both are equipped with traction tires. One thing that I pointed out earlier is that the box was extremely heavy. It's not the box that gives the weight, it's actually the model. And that is because the boiler is made out of die-cast metal, so is the tender and the frame. So all this together comes in at a whopping 3.47 pounds. So one thing about models that are painted black, it is incredibly hard to show off the details on it through a camera, let alone looking at it from your own eyes. So one thing I like to point out in the back is that it has a ton of grab irons on the back here that are intricately placed, and they look very good. So these marker lights actually work, which look really good in the dark. Unfortunately, this light does not work. The rear light does work as well. Underneath here you'll find some coupler cut bar detail along with a brake hose. The tender looks really good. You'll see that the truck detail, if you will, looks really nice. There's some molded in brake detail there as well. And there's tiny little lift rings or little hooks here that are very well done, and they look really good. Near where the cab is, you'll notice some valve detail along with the small piping near the firebox here. Those details just really bring this model together. If you notice in between the cab and the tender, Broadway Limited did a pretty good job at concealing the wires. You really can't hardly tell that they're there unless you're looking for them. Another thing I like to point out is that this model actually has cab figures, and the windows can actually open and close, as you can see here. Later in the video you'll see that the cab is actually lit when the engine is at a stop. As I move the engine just a bit, you can see that there is some well done detail on the front of the tender here as well. So on top of the tender you'll find some brass pieces. Here's the whistle, which has a brass piece as well. You'll notice later in the video that this is a steam whistle, so you'll see smoke coming out of the whistle when you blow it. Also, you'll see that this is an exhaust stack here, and earlier in the video I showed you that there was a hood for the exhaust stack that goes right over this piece right here. So the way you add smoke fluid is you just pour it down one of these holes here, and you use the funnel to do that. But be careful not to put the funnel too deep, or else you could possibly melt the funnel inside the smoke unit. So here I wanted to point out the top of the tender. I really do believe that this is real coal, and I don't find any information online about whether this is real coal or not. The only reason I think it is because I have older Broadway Limited models that do have real coal in the tender. Also, you'll find some hatches here on the top.
Permission to depart. Be advised, switches on the north end might be against you, so go out looking out for switches. That's a roger, go.
Yeah, one more thing. Do you want me to throw the switch back to the original position there? Over?
I don't know if they'll be able to come out or not, but that's all I got today. Okay, I want to find out how you are first. Okay. 4 hour.
Alright, so now that you've seen this model go down the rail, you've heard what it sounds like, and you've seen it roll up close, I think you'll agree it's a very nice looking model. It sounds impeccable and it has a ton of detail and it runs really good. Now, I'd like to point out my favorite key feature of this model, and it is the smoke unit. I know, hold on. I've heard all the controversy. I've seen pictures of the smoke units and Broadway Limited. Although I really don't think we're going to have the issues with this model in particular because that boiler is made out of metal, and I really don't think that the smoke unit is going to get hot enough to melt down that boiler. Although the only thing that I could think the worst case scenario for this model is that the smoke unit could burn out, which, you know, it's inevitable. Something's going to go bad. Nothing's ever going to be perfect. So I'll just end up replacing it and it won't really be a big deal. So overall, I think that Broadway Limited did an amazing job with this model. It looks so good and it sounds great. Now, also what I like to point out that I really liked about this model is that it does not stall on dirty track or, you know, bad areas around the layout. I love that. I love that it keeps going if there's an issue with the track. That's a great thing that I think that Broadway Limited did with this model. So that's pretty much it, guys. If you guys have any questions, put them in a comment down below. If you like this video, subscribe and like. There'll be plenty of this content in the future. There's a ton of new stuff coming in 2023 that I'm going to review and show in-depth video of this year. So, like I said, if you liked it, subscribe. Stay tuned for the rest of the year. So that's pretty much it for the video, guys. Talk to you later. Take care and keep it between the rails.